Alright, hey everyone, how you doing, and welcome back to another video. Before the video starts, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, join the Discord, do all these things. Yeah, you've heard the same shtick from me before if you've been watching for a while. Anyway, this is another Roman history video. In the last video, we discussed, the plebes getting more rights, and, the associated things that came with it. So what we've got here is a map of modern-day Italy, but it'll probably suffice for our purposes. Anyway, so we've got the city of Rome here, but to the south and east of Rome, there were hill tribes, which are different from the citizens of Rome and Etruria to the north, because they were not actually settled. They didn't really build many cities. You see, Rome had, for some years, devoted a large part of their energy to attacking these hill tribes, chief among which were the Volscians. And, quite frankly, given the Roman military record against them, it seemed like either the hill tribes were absolute pushovers or the Romans were really, really strong. We can't exactly tell which. But, you see, this is what kicked off, more waves of plebeian unrest. For, you see, the plebes were not happy about this war. They were like, if the Volscians are such pushovers, why do we need to keep fighting them and waste resources? It almost seems like you, Mr. Patrician, are trying to dodge the question of, plebeians marrying patricians, and plebeians getting the consulship and all that. So the patrician's like, wait, no, that's not what we mean at all. You guys are dumb. Boo. Boo. Yeah, and obviously this didn't suffice for a real answer, so eventually the leading patricians got together and decided they had to do something quick. So they drafted what we now call the 12 Tables, or the Roman Code of Law. While it was similar in many ways to our modern code of law in many countries, we've still got a long way to progress, because, you see, the 12 Tables included some laws that really do not make any sense. For example, if you were a thief and you were breaking into someone's house, just let me draw a house here for a sec. You were breaking into somebody's house without their knowledge. You broke in, da-na-na. If it's nighttime, the owner of the house has the right to kill you. But if it's daytime, you have to be hauled in front of the magistrate's court without a hair on your head being harmed. Which, makes you think back over to Hammurabi and all of that. Anyway, that was just one of many laws. But the real flashpoint in the 12 Tables came in somewhere in the 10th table. You see, the 12 tables were named for the 12 bronze tablets they were inscribed on. And somewhere in the 10th table, this law came up. Plebeians and patricians are not allowed to marry. And that caused a lot more plebeian agitation. Now, I should backtrack a bit, because I haven't discussed who the heck made the 12 tables in the first place. And, you see, I've already told you about the consuls, right? Two elected patricians who stand in office every year, and they're a check to each other's authority. But, you see, this year, to create the 12 tables, the patricians decided something needed to be different. So they decided to elect 10 people, called Decemvirs, like if you've heard of the triumvirate, that it's similar. It's called the Decemvirate, and they were the ones who the founding fathers of Rome decided, hey, let's make them in charge of all our laws. Now, one of these people stood above the rest. His name was Appius Claudius. Remember that name, because that will come up a lot in Rome. You may have heard of the Emperor Claudius, you may have heard of the Claudius who created the Appian Way. Appius Claudius is a name you will remember for a very long time if you study Roman history. Anyway, this particular Appius Claudius, which I say because there's more than one, decided, hey, you know what would be a great idea? Since we've all got consular power, and we've got control over the entire law system of Rome. What if we just take power in a coup and never give up power? So, they're like, so their term's up, and, Dave the Roman here comes and says, "Oh yeah, the term's up, you guys better get ready for consular elections." What consular elections? And then Dave gets kicked out of the room, and this is obviously a dramatization. I doubt that actually happened, but old Claudius here takes power at the head of basically a 10-person dictatorship, oligarchy, I guess, yeah, probably would be described as an oligarchy, and, he starts making decisions that are deeply unpopular with the plebes, considering he's, dyed-in-the-wool patrician. Now, finally, things come to a head with a particular incident I'm not really going to talk about, since, basically, the people in the army, really disliked this particular incident so much that things came to a head, and, they decided to secede from the city and go back to the Sacred Mount, as they did a couple of years earlier, when I talked about it last video, the first secession of the plebs. Appius Claudius was not very happy about this, and eventually, some of his biggest rivals managed to sneak in and depose the entire Decemvirate and get back to the rule of law, which, by the way, was now much more clearly defined thanks to the 12 tables, so maybe these guys weren't so bad after all. Now, Claudius was supposed to be arrested and then probably duly executed. Before that could happen, he committed die. That was all that was left of the Decemvirates was the 12 tables, thankfully. And despite the fact that this first Appius Claudius was a criminal and a dictator, his descendants would manage to live on in fame and infamy in Roman history. Anyway, remember how I talked about the Volscians being one of the hill tribes in the southeast of Rome? Well, there was another one called the Aequii, and, you see, there was an incident that occurred. Rome was at war with the Aequii for one reason or another, they sent out their 2 consuls, regularly, and the consuls were expecting it to be a pushover. But unfortunately, one of the consuls, instead of directly attacking the Aequian army, decided to set up a camp, and while he was setting up a camp, the Aequii seized this chance, as any reasonable person might, attacked them, and killed them while they were setting up. And only supposedly 5 horsemen made it back to Rome to tell of this tragedy. And now we get to this guy, the man, the myth, the legend, who supposedly even George Washington modeled his behavior on. And if you're not an American, that basically just means he's really, really interesting, I guess. Not necessarily cool, but, yeah, so we've got Cincinnatus. He's really, really rich, actually. He's got, extensive estates. He's a patrician all the way through, and, he's got a son. Now, this son decides that, since he's a patrician, he's going to go flex on the plebs, and one thing leads to another, and flexing turns to beating them up with a gang. And, since this was known, people found out, hey, Cincinnatus' son is beating up plebs. The son got executed. Cincinnatus himself had to pay a heavy fine, which means that he had to sell most of his estates and retire to work on a small farm. And you might think that's the end of the story. Oh no, poor guy, his son beat up plebs, and he's gotta pay the price. Quite literally. But no. Because you see, while Cincinnatus was working his small farm, the Aequii were attacking, as I said before, and they were getting pretty close to Rome. So, the Roman Senate, mostly made up of patricians, thought, hey, who can we send that's pretty capable, and also a patrician? Hey, let's make Cincinnatus dictator. So they thought, yeah, that's a great idea, and they made him a dictator. As legend goes, he basically only stopped to ask to put on his toga and then went straight off to the city. He raised a levy of peasants and completely beat up the Aequii, but rather than killing them all, he just asked for amnesty, only asking that their leaders be delivered to him. And, you know, you might think that this is enough and that you don't need to know anymore, but, you would be surprised. You know, there's one more crisis that he had to deal with after the Aequii. Yeah, so you remember how I said, you know, back a couple episodes ago that Rome would never have any kings, which was debatably true even until Constantine XI's death in 1453? Well, you see, not everyone thought that was right or proper. So now that brings us back to Cincinnatus and his farm. So he was just working his farm, doing his business, when once again the patricians from Rome rushed to him to tell him something crazy had happened. You see, this guy, who I've just put a question mark above his head in the colors of the crown, because he could be king, you know. This guy was a wealthy pleb. His name was Spurius Maelius, and, he decided to buy a lot of wheat. Now, that in itself wasn't especially unusual. You know, he could have been a grain merchant or something like that. But then, here's the kicker. He started selling it to plebs at absurdly low prices. So he was selling wheat at a loss, and obviously this made the plebs really, really like him, you know. He's so cool and awesome. Cha-ching, cha-ching, and this was not good for his standing with the patricians, to say the least. They thought he was becoming king, and so they rushed over to Cincinnatus and they were like, dude, come out of retirement, please, come out, please. And Cincinnatus was like, okay, sure. And so he goes over to Rome and sets himself up at the head of a tribunal, and he calls Spurius Maelius to trial, you know. Can he defend what he's doing, you know? If he's not trying to become king, he can prove it. Although, they were probably just going to, execute him anyway, considering he's a pleb, and he's trying to empower the plebs. Anyway, so, Maelius does not appear for trial. Psych! And, yeah, so Cincinnatus sends some of his people after him, including his master of horse, a guy named Gaius Servilius Ahalla. And Ahalla is walking over, he's in a crowd, he's trying to spot him, and suddenly, there he is, the guy right there. And, conveniently, I say this within quotes, Ahalla had a knife tucked right under his arm, where he could use it. And so, he took the knife, give me a sec just to group it, and he took the knife, and he stabbed this guy, he stabbed, the guy that was trying to become king, and the guy that was trying to become king died a very interesting death. And, I'll just put the crosses over his eyes, and, this was yet another incident that not only proved why Rome would never have kings ever again, but also that, people could be very ruthless when they needed to be. This done, Cincinnatus retired to his farm once more, this time never to return to becoming dictator, and faded away into the annals of history. Did I mention, by the way, that both of his dictatorships all took less than 2 weeks? Well, more than 2 weeks, actually, depending on which one you do, but less than a month for sure. Even though the allotted term of dictatorship was 6 months, he took less than 1 month. So that tells you about the speed at which he accomplished things. And, even if he was definitely, a firm patrician, and he was on the side of the patricians, for marriage, he didn't want the plebes, but he was still able to get things done really quickly, and because of the fact that he resigned his dictatorship after he'd completed his job instead of seizing power, that was supposedly the main reason why he's compared to George Washington, who gave up the presidency once his term was up. Alright, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys learned something. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Join the Discord if you want to talk about this, and see you guys next time. Goodbye.